George Will, Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, NewsNation senior contributor, with us now. Good to see you, sir. What's the cognitive dissonance between how well the Ukrainians are doing thanks to American help and the lack of credit given to President Biden?
President Biden must be wondering this by himself amazingly, because he not only did not get a bounce from the State of the Union, he's not getting the rally round the flag kind of bounce that you normally get when the United States is engaged, as we are actually engaged in Ukraine. I don't understand it, because it does seem to me that he's behaved pretty well, except for the various statements he has to walk back.
Then it's interesting. You think about, the statement about Putin has to go, the statement about the 82nd Airborne going into Ukraine, if there's a minor incursion. We got a whole list of them. But is there something about Biden's blunders and Trump's tweets that the American people pay attention to and do not give either one of them during their presidencies credit for good foreign policy successes?
It could be, but it's also the case that I think Mr. Biden is not criticized for Joe being Joe. He has a long history since he came here as a senator in January 1973 of saying what's on his mind without the filter of prudence always. So I think people say, well, this is just Joe.
Yeah, it's the old line of saying the quiet part out loud. Interestingly enough, even though President Trump, President Biden were about the same place in their poll numbers relative to their presidencies, a new 2024 poll from The Hill, Trump 47, Biden 41, if it was held today. This is a Harvard Capps Harris poll. Trump 49, Harris 38. Does the Democrats' continued hammering about January 6th and the leaks we are seeing coming out of the January 6th committee, like whether or not Trump used burner phones, this leak today, that there's a gap in the phone logs on January 6th, does that have to do with a realization by the Democratic Party that President Trump is still the greatest threat to them holding on to power?
I don't think it's that he's the greatest threat, although he might be. I think rather it is he's their unbreakable obsession at this point. The media, as you know, finds him entertaining. He is an entertainer. And when he speaks, people want to listen. But I think it's not at all clear that he's as dominant as that poll would suggest.
Yeah, it's always interesting to do these polls once someone's been out of the news and the human mind kind of forgets the bad things. Back to President Biden just for a second. Is there anything he could do? Does history provide us any lessons for how he would get the bump, both from the State of the Union and, as you say, the rally around the flag? Things are looking a lot better than they did 5 weeks ago in Ukraine.
It just could be, Leland, that the public has made up its mind about Mr. Biden, that he's elderly, that he's limited, that he's loquacious, that he lacks a filter. And they're not going to continue judging him on this, but it's part of their composite picture of him as president. And I think once that sets in, it's really hard to change.
How much of what comes out of this January 6th committee, these leaks, Trump's statement, I have no idea what a burner phone is. To the best of my knowledge, I've never heard the term. John Bolton just came out and said that's utter cow manure. But still, we keep seeing these leaks from the January 6th commission. Are they going to hurt President Trump with Republicans who still by multiple double digits say he should be the nominee?
I don't think so. His base of the unshakable Trump supporters are not going to be moved, I think, by what the committee says. However, there are a lot of Americans who are going to be really interested in what we learn. And that's why when there's a 7 hours and 37-minute gap in the phone records, a lot of people with long memories say, that reminds us of the 18-and-a-half-minute gap in the first Watergate tape of an Oval Office meeting with the president and his chief of staff, Haldeman, just 3 days after the Watergate break-in. Yeah. That, as the continuing to unfold the Watergate scandal, people said that looks like a guilty mind somehow. And they may say this about the missing phone records.
Right. It is never the crime in Washington. It is always the cover-up.
Always.
We're getting these leaks out of the January 6th Commission about Ginny Thomas's, the wife of Clarence Thomas's, text messages, this idea of the gap in the phone log, to your point of sort of trying to say that, look at this gap. There must be a relationship to Watergate. And you point out people remember that. You've covered a lot of scandals and seen a lot of leaks in Washington. If Democrats on the January 6th committee had the goods on President Trump, why wouldn't they just leak those?
They might not have the goods yet. There are still people they want to hear from. There are records they have not yet got. They may go down a rabbit hole of assigning obstruction of Congress to some people who are not complying. So we're a long way from them having their report ready to go. I have a feeling that when it comes out, it's going to be a big splash.
It certainly will be, and certainly the media, a number of the channels today sort of breathlessly covered both this gap in the phone logs and then the Ginny Thomas's texts as well. Mr. Will, always good to see you, even if it's on a Tuesday rather than a Monday, and we'll see you next week.
I hope so. Look forward to it.
You will. Opening day is coming up. Thank you, sir. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.